Hey everybody, this is Dan Berger substituting in for Mike Capera tonight on What You Drinking, episode 95. I'm sorry. Uh, Hi everybody, I think I rushed the gun there. This is Dan Berger substituting in for Mike Capera. Hello. For What You Drinking, episode 95 tonight. And God, can you believe there's like only five left until 100? That's a lot of episodes of
No
this.
kidding. No kidding.
That's a lot of beer. So I'm here tonight with Mike out in Boston. How you doing there?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Good to be here.
Now let's see. What was the style tonight? I think it was a local brewery seasonal offering. Um, so I'm going to let you start for reasons that will become very apparent very quickly.
Okay. All right, sure. Happy to be here. And I like this. I like Mike a lot. I like that he runs these things, but this is an interesting setup, so I'm excited to see how this goes.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So I have some of you may recognize the growler here. Oh, that's tough to see.
Yeah, I see the
There we go.
Trillium logo. There it is.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep, I went to Trillium Friday of last week, so I guess the general rule with a growler is that it lasts about a week before things may start, the quality may start to deteriorate. So I went on Friday, so I'm well within the time frame of this, the lifetime of the growler, and I got Tree Creeper, which
Okay.
I don't know if it qualifies as a seasonal. It's certainly a local brewery. I think Tree Creeper is a beer that they've had in the past. It's brewed with Valley wheat and malt, and so it's ultra local, and it's a fantastic beer. It's got some great color on it. It's a pale ale. It's well hopped. Actually, I take that back. I don't know for sure that it's a pale ale. It might actually be a farmhouse saison style, but it's almost like a hybrid because it's well hopped, and it really it drinks more like a pale ale. The flavor is more like a pale ale. It's very very good.
Ah, it sounds delicious. And certainly better than my beer, which is Lake Michigan tap water.
Oh
I
geez.
yeah, I actually like or you probably heard last week, I was out with a stomach virus, and so there were some symptoms that persisted, and I went in to see the gastroenterologist this week, and it's nothing major, but tomorrow I have to get an ultrasound. So it's one
Oh
of those
man.
things where, yeah, I don't need to be messing around with anything the day before that. So it's like 7:30 tomorrow morning. But
Are you restricted after midnight? Like you can't eat or drink anything after a certain time and stuff too?
yeah, after 11 p.m. I'm done until after the procedure, which is it's an ultrasound, so it's not much to it.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, I'm glad you brought up Trillium because I've been curious about something ever since we took our trip out there. We were out there at, I want to say, the end of March, beginning of, yeah, it was the end of March, beginning of April.
That's right. You and I haven't been on at the same time, I think, since you took the trip. So I'm very interested to hear how things went.
Well, actually, things went very well. We didn't really end up going to a lot of beer destinations. The two primary ones that we went to were Trillium, or I went to, because there's actually this Boston Tea Party. I don't know, it's like a living theater sort of thing where they have some ships in
Hmm.
the harbor, and they've got their their shtick, and
Oh yeah.
you learn a little bit of history. So that happens to be about 3 blocks north of where Trillium is. So while my the rest of the family was in the gift shop, I kind of scurried over there, and I almost missed it because I went to the bottle shop before it, and then I went
Oh
past
right.
the alley, and I went to the restaurant after it, and then of course it's like it's in the alley, and which I'm sure it's like that story is probably the most repeated story about Trillium ever
I'm
on the
sure.
internet.
I'm sure.
But it was really cool. They one of the people at Trillium had just gotten back from a trip to Chicago, actually, checking out the beer scene, and probably, I don't know if there was a festival or something on at the time, or some sort of meeting, within craft beer, like a
Yeah.
Brewers Association meeting or something like that. So the other place we went to is, I want to say, is it Cape Ann Brewing up in
Oh yeah.
Gloucester? We have family that lives in Gloucester, so so
Yep.
my aunt took us to, well, it's my wife's aunt, but she's my aunt too, as far as I'm concerned. She took us to Cape Ann Brewing, and that was a nice place. They had some good beers on tap, but I was interested to see that they were doing these sort of what everybody's doing, and the we've got the special beer. This is the only bottled beer that we've got because this is our white whale.
Hmm.
Um, so, but I mean, it was solid stuff. So, what I wanted to ask you actually specifically about Trillium is that I've got a few more bottles down in the basement. It's the coffee infused stouts. Is there, how they have like the night and day, day and night series?
Yep. And then the PM Dawn too. It actually gets kind of confusing.
Okay. Well, this was the, I think, night and day, and it was they had
Yep.
two variations on the coffee imperial stout. But I got a couple of their pails too, and you get the funky yeast on those right away. It's not like any
Hmm.
other pale ale you get pretty much anywhere else. But what I wanted to ask you is that yeast something that they use in most of their beers? Is that like their proprietary house yeast, or are they using it in most of their pale beers but not their stouts, or what's going on with that?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. I have a little bit of knowledge, I think, around what the answer may be, but I don't know for sure. What I do know is that they did kind of a neat thing where the couple that owns the brewery and runs it, actually, they've been, you know, beer enthusiasts for a long time, and they took the they got married at a vineyard. The story is that they got married at a vineyard, and they took the some of the uh, uh, I don't know if it was the yeast or something that was growing on the grapes at the vineyard, and they used that as the basis for a lot of the yeast that goes into their beers. I don't know
Oh
if it's
wow,
all, but I know that they use it for a lot of it.
that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, so there's a little bit of a story behind it, but I don't know if it's all the beers. I don't know if it's just a few. I know it's been in at least one because when they put out that beer, that's when the story came out about it.
Right.
But I don't know if they're using it all the time or not. But I would agree with you that it is unique. It does have that very upfront sort of yeast that is kind of unique.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's
yeah,
it's it's cloudy and it's funky and it's not
mhm.
exactly sour, but it's definitely not what you're usually running into as far as your house yeasts are concerned with most other pales and IPAs. And I
Yep.
see Skylar's joined us. Hello, Skylar. Wanted to sneak that in real quick.
How's it going,
Cheers.
guys?
Pretty
Skylar.
good. How's it going? But you were going to say, Mike, I didn't want to cut you off. I wanted to make sure I got Skylar in there.
No, yeah, it was good. I wanted to ask you, what you got while you were there, what you thought of the beers you've had so far. I hope my warnings about how small of a place it really is, prepared you for what you saw when you got there. I'm just curious what your thoughts have been so far.
Well, I mean, it was small, but I was the only one in there as a customer at the time, so it
Oh,
didn't
good.
matter. Because I think we were in during the week. It was like a Thursday probably, and it was probably around rush time, so I think it was before people would have started going there.
Okay.
Um, I ended up getting the two variations, like I said, on that stout. I also got I think the Congress Street IPA and the A Street IPA.
Oh,
I,
nice.
yeah, and the Congress Street was fantastic. Well, they were both really excellent IPAs. Very, like I said, very unique flavors that they get with the yeast that they use. Um, but yeah, it was thoroughly enjoyable. I'd go back again. Of course, next time I wouldn't mind going out to a few other places because we were in Somerville actually. My wife's
Yep.
cousin has a bike shop out there, and seemed to be a number of breweries in that area, and we just couldn't get to them, for whatever reason.
Yep.
So, anyways,
Cool.
Skylar, what's going on with you, man?
Oh, nothing much. How's everything going with you guys?
Pretty good. Pretty
Uh,
good.
yeah, kind of stumbling my way through this hosting stuff, but figuring it out. So what you
You're
drinking?
sober. You're sober, so that will
I,
probably help.
well, that could hurt too. It's a sort of like you need to
True.
grease the wheels a little bit. But what you drinking, Skylar?
I just picked up some Stone Delicious IPA.
Ah,
I was interested in it because it's got lemon drop and Eldorado hops, and we recently had a guy here in Houston that won a really big competition on an IPA with nothing but lemon drop, and I haven't used it personally yet, but it seems to have some pretty interesting qualities. So yeah, just kind of checking that out. I would say this is probably one of Stone's most balanced IPAs they've ever made. It's kind of strange for them. Usually they're just aggressively hopped, and this one definitely displays the flavor of the hops, but it's actually quite well balanced as well.
that's interesting because it was not this week, but last week. Was it last week that they, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago? No, it was 2 weeks ago that they did the Germany episode on brew dogs, and the episode is actually set at Stone in Germany. And I'm wondering if going for a more balanced flavor profile like that is something that might be an attempt to kind of appeal to the German palate and the German market, or maybe get more of a gateway beer to the aggressively hopped American IPAs. I don't know. What do you think?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's I think that as the IPA, what do you want to call it? The interest in IPA. A lot of people call it a fad. I wouldn't go so far, but as the interest in IPAs as a gateway beer for craft beer drinkers kind of rolls along, I think it's going to get into this spot in which it can't just be okay. Let's throw all these interesting hops and use two row as your base and not do anything else about it. Um,
Right.
you've got to come up with a really interesting, nice, easy to drink IPA. And it's going to become more and more evident as time goes along. So what I'm really hoping is that the English IPA kind of gets more traction here. Sort of a malt forward IPA. The bitterness is still there, the hop flavor is still there, but you got this really nice malt backbone to kind of to get in there and add to the beer. That's what my IPA tries doing, the Sunny Day IPA.
Yeah, that's an interesting route to go because, and it's not only the backbone of the malt on that one, it's the yeast strain too. The esters that get thrown off that are a lot different. It's a lot more kind of almost fruitiness forward rather than, I mean, especially if you're using traditional English hops like the Fuggles and the Kent Goldings, because those tend to be more fruity, spicy. Um, Actually, kind of getting back to Stone for a second, I saw an article it was a couple of weeks back now, actually. It was directly regarding Stone and a recent blog post that they put out about the Stone Ruination IPA and how they're taking a number of their flagships and kind of going 2.0 versions on them, completely changing the at least the hop profile. I don't know if they're completely changing the recipe in total. Um, but the article was titled "How We're Killing Craft Beer Classics: The Death of Stone Ruination," and that title kind of struck me as being emblematic of a lot of articles you're seeing out right about now.
Uh-huh.
About titanic shifts in the craft beer industry and in the constant ADHD of craft beer palates in the states here. And I'm just kind of wondering what you guys see. I mean, especially Skylar as a brewer, but also Mike as a consumer. What your general sense is and how that's playing out.
Mike, you want to take this one first?
Sure. I am definitely a consumer. Um, I think the first thing that came to my mind is that it may be just a function of more and more people getting interested in craft beer and more people drinking it. I think when you're going to get more and more people, you're going to, obviously have different tastes, and you're going to have more people who like different things. Um, the I just tried for the first time the Ghost, and I never had that kind of beer before until 2 weeks ago, and it was great. But had more, if you didn't have the amount of people that are getting into craft beer now drinking it, that beer wouldn't have been on tap in the bar I was at. They wouldn't have had that. They would have had all IPAs, or they would have had, a wider selection of your Bud Light, Coors Lights. You wouldn't have had all the interesting stuff that they happen to have at this bar that I was at. So I think it's just varying taste. Sure, maybe I think that's part of it. I know that my tastes have changed over time since I first got into beer, but I think maybe the biggest thing is just that there's more and more people drinking it, and so people can be a little more creative, knowing that at least some people out there are going to drink it and they're going to like it.
Well, is there a point where it's reasonable to say, maybe we shouldn't be chasing after the new fresh thing all the time? I mean, there are a lot of beers that I know personally, and this is probably kind of on the show before, that I don't drink anymore, that I probably should at least, crack one open every once in a while. But it's almost gotten to the point where if you do that, you blink and you've missed entire sort of seasons of beer,
Sure.
and some of which never comes back again. So I don't know. I mean, and you can. It would be nice to have a bartender here, because a lot of this speaks to curation too, like both at liquor stores and at bars. But is the American palate just a complete mess? Are we nuts, or are we just, or is this actually a good thing, really, that we're kind of keep pushing forward? I don't know. What do you think, Skylar, as a brewer, to keep up with that?
I think you're seeing more and more articles and things in the media in relation to craft beer, and certain fads that go in and out, or gotta have this beer, this brewery's coming up, what have you. It's really just the media latching on to something new. I wouldn't worry necessarily about any one thing that someone's saying in terms of new styles coming out. Yeah, it's good to be in the know, but at the end of the day, you just want to drink a beer that tastes good. And I was having this conversation with my wife earlier, how craft beer is kind of like it's snuck up on people like cell phones. At one point we lived in a world without cell phones, and we didn't think about it. And then suddenly everyone has cell phones, and now everyone's like, wait, we got to think of the consequences of this. How is this changing everything? And I think something similar is happening with craft beer, especially in this area in Texas, where you have a large concentration of just your Bud Miller Coors people, and the bars that we're getting into now. I would go there and say, there's no way this place serves craft beer, and then you walk in there and they've got 4 or 5 different craft beers to try. It's just a sign of the times, things changing. It's just one of those things that's here to stay. You see this with a lot of things. You don't have much of a selection, and then boom, you have a ton of selection, and now there's so much to talk about. I think it's a good thing. I don't see any reason to worry about anything. Some people talk about a craft beer bubble popping, whatever. Maybe for the big guys, possibly for the guys that do multi-state distribution and things like that. Because over time, it is going to become more and more of a local influence than say your Stone or New Belgium or Dogfish Head. But in the end, that's just how the market comes to play. If you're selling a beer in a state and it's good, keep doing it. If you're not selling beer, then pull out. Bear Republic just did that here in Texas. They found out their beers were not selling well here, and so they pulled distribution. That's just of the way things go.
No, and I think that it's what you're saying about sort of regional concerns really rings true in the sense that we tend to think of craft beer as this giant movement, and it's really not a single thing. In a lot of ways, it's a lot of little regional sort of concerns. Even be less than regional. I mean, micro community-based, beer sellers that they all kind of maybe have generally the same ethos about brewing great beer and connecting with community and kind of tapping into this sort of cultural vibe. But at the heart, they are kind of stuck where they are, and each place that the brewer finds himself has a very different sort of tolerance or familiarity with craft beer even today. Like California is totally different than Mississippi. I mean, it's not even close. But there is still this sort of, I don't know, this kind of struck me too. I was reading another article, and this one came out just a couple of weeks ago, about Bar Fight, why craft brewing is about to go to war with itself. And this I found interesting because it really, and it kind of does point to more than just reactionary articles like we were talking about a little bit earlier. It's more kind of like spelling out some of the consequences of how craft beer is developed. It sounds like, for example, that the definition that the Brewers Association has put out regarding craft beer has changed significantly, and that has had a fairly significant impact on the 20 by 2020 on raising that percentage up of the number of craft brewers that are a part of the percentage that's saturated the market. It used to be that you had to be much smaller. Now they're Yingling suddenly is on. They brew with corn, couldn't brew with corn before. It's shifted to push closer to that 20% mark, and I'm wondering if that's creating. Do you think that? Well, this is kind of what I've thought about the Brewers Association. Is the Brewers Association trying to manufacture numbers to a certain extent, or manufacture culture, or what do you see as their purpose really? Because that kind of makes it sound dishonest, and I don't really mean to go there, but it's pretty clear that they have an agenda. And do you think they're going about their business the right way in fulfilling that agenda?
In the end, any association or group, especially where you have members that you have to pay, you're going to want as many paying members as possible. Now, what we're talking about when changing the definition of craft beer, who is that really affecting? It's not affecting the consumer. If you think that's true, then read more into it. Really, all it's affecting is statistics.
Right.
It's all about statistics. It's just like when they declassified Pluto as a planet. Everyone got into an uproar about that, but it's still there. Absolutely nothing's changed. That piece of rock is still floating in space in our solar system. Craft beer, Yingling's a craft brewery by today's definitions now. Is that really going to affect you drinking it versus not drinking it or any of that? Now, what it does affect is some legal standpoints where if you have a bill that covers things on craft beer and craft beer only, then that could create an issue. However, as far as I know, with most of the state laws governing beer is beer. They don't really make too much of a different distinction between craft beer and big beer in the case of, okay, these guys got to pay this much and these guys have to pay this much. It's really not that separate. It's mostly for, like I said before, statistics. You could go deeper into that, but I just feel like it's just one of those things. Like I said before, the media wants something to talk about, and craft beer is becoming more of a thing that people are aware of. So let's talk about it. But at the same time, let's not get ahead of ourselves and thinking that it's something any bigger, any smaller than it is.
Right. But I mean, at the same time, craft beer has always sort of had these rallying cries, especially against, big beer. That's really Jim Koch's sort of, sword waving from way back was all about that. I'm going to actually direct this one at you, Mike. As a consumer, how much of the whole 20% of the market by 2020 even makes a difference to you? I mean, is it completely about the beer, or do you feel like you get caught up in this sort of like, this bigger movement that is craft beer? I mean, what matters to you ultimately as a consumer?
So a couple things. That the thing that comes to mind when you say, craft beer going to war against itself, I wonder if that's really just more and more craft breweries and popping up closer together, and so they're competing against each other. I mean,
Oh, absolutely, it is.
and,
Yeah.
there's a limited amount of taps in a limited amount of bars in in any town, and so if you've got three different breweries all in surrounding towns, like those three are going to be competing. Sure, they're small, they don't distribute very far, but they're all going to be competing for that one, bar in the town that's in between all of them. So, yeah, maybe in that sense they're going to war against themselves. But to your question, I mean, going back to what Skylar said, I'm going to drink what tastes good. And if I drink a beer that tastes good from one brewery, chances are I'm going to go back and try something else from that same brewery because I like what I've had. And I'm going to continue to jump on these conversations about craft beer and see what talk to my friends about what they're drinking, what they've had, what they've liked. Find new breweries that way. And I think that's what people are going to keep doing. And I think eventually, we may be getting to that point now, but eventually, like it's just not, it can't grow. I mean, there are only so many people who are going to drink beer, and I don't know how many craft breweries the country can sustain, but who knows? Maybe it goes beyond the country. Maybe some of these small breweries have the ability to really distribute, and they kick it up, and they're focusing their efforts outside the country too. So who knows? I mean, it can keep growing. I think there's still room to grow.
Yeah.
But as far as a consumer goes, I mean, I love the fact that it seems like most liquor stores around me have at least a decent selection of craft beers, and not just craft beers, but some harder to find stuff. I mean, pretty much everything has Stone. Pretty much everything has Dogfish Head, Lagunitas, Goose Island. Like those you can now find everywhere here, which I think is fantastic. And then on top of that, there's more and more smaller local options around here. It's things like Jack's Abbey, Two Roads. You mentioned earlier Cape Ann. You see that from time to time around here. Maine Beer Company. More and more places are carrying those breweries as well. So I think it's fantastic. I mean, there's just a lot of options. There's the Familiar, and what's nice is that the Familiar now is not just Bud and Miller. The Familiar is Goose Island. The Familiar is Sierra Nevada, which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, to have such problems for sure.
Exactly.
No, but
That brings me to two topics we were actually discussing. At first unrelated, but now they're related. From
okay.
what Mike was saying with all these choices, and how you said earlier, that was always Jim Cook's cry, the craft versus the big guys. I feel like most of that fight, if you want to call it a fight, and I would suggest that it is, it's a fight about choice and selection in your area. We're having several fights like that here in America. When you look at internet service providers, here's a great example. There are places where, what are your choices? Comcast. Do you have any other choices? No, you don't. And that's a damn shame, because then they get to set their price, and you don't get to enjoy anything from anyone else. Maybe you'd have to live down the street to get AT&T or the next block over for Verizon. But very rarely, especially in our area, do you see where you have a choice between several different providers. And it's that choice that, as Americans, we're addicted to. We love having a choice, freedom in our decisions. And I think that's how the beer world was 10, 20 years ago. Yeah, you had these small guys coming up, but could you really go out and get them? No, and that's changed. And thank God it's changed because, like Mike was saying, now you can go anywhere and have at least some sort of expectation of availability, choice in craft beer, and that's fantastic. Another thing, but go on.
No, I was well. No, go ahead. Because you said that you had two things, 2 points that you were going to bring up. So go ahead.
Right. So second point.
Right.
The fight amongst craft or any perception of fighting amongst craft brewers is totally false as far as I'm concerned in our area. The idea of having one bar with only so many taps is really moot when it comes to the fact that, let's say a bar has 10 taps and 9 of those taps are being serviced by a single distributor, which is mostly Bud products. Now, does that mean that that one tap that isn't Bud, we've got craft brewers fighting for that one tap, which may be Miller instead? And I've been in situations like this. No, it just means you need to take a tap away from one of those Bud products from the distributor. It's kind of a complex situation because it's not brewery fighting against brewery, it's the brewery's distributors fighting amongst themselves when it comes to the availability of taps. And now you have self-distributing breweries like my own. And then that's a whole nother thing. Usually bars are more than happy to take one of those 9 taps and replace 2 of them with something local, something good. Recently, we had a cool little meeting. For the first time, we got every single brewery in our county. I live in Galveston County in Texas. We're usually kind of overshadowed by Houston, Harris County. And because of that, we've got all these beer events that are Houston. They kind of group us in. So we had a meeting. We brought all the brewery owners and brewers together in Galveston County to say, hey, we have our own thing going on down here. And we discussed a lot of things, had a blast. And that was a topic that got brought up, is like, are we really competing with each other? Absolutely not. We were talking we could work for 10 years getting all the accounts we want, and we still wouldn't have 5% of the market in this area. So it's just one of those things where any craft beer bubble, at least in my area, we wouldn't worry about. Hell, even well-populated by craft brewer areas like Colorado, I wouldn't be worried about them either, because they're almost self-sustaining. They don't need to distribute. You just go to them, and they can give you beer.
Well, let me flip this around. This is going to be kind of an interesting way of looking at this. Maybe are we looking at the end of a American light lager bubble? And if we are, and the Budweisers and the Coors and Miller Coors of the world are going to be selling less and less of that product, and they're bringing more and more craft brewers into their fold, is that necessarily a reason to continue hating on Bud? In other words, I could, I'm not going to answer that. I'll let you guys say. Do you think that the American Light Lager's history is not necessarily at an end, but is the sea change such that it's going out of style? And if so, what does that say about any new model that Budweiser, AB InBev finds itself in? Should we be hating on them as much because they're not the big beer anymore if they're losing all those all that market share? Go ahead.
Yes. American Adjunct Lager is going out of style. Does that mean it's going out for good? No. Hell, who knows? Decades from now, maybe it'll be this style that almost went extinct and then it makes a comeback, like a lot of things do. But this has happened many times throughout history. You have styles of beer that are very prominent because it's, what you could find at the moment. Look at Dogfish Head's line of ancient ales, bring back all these crazy styles that used to be normality, and now it's just lost to the ages. You know, American brewers at the time used corn and rice because that's all they had. They couldn't afford shipping barley in from across seas, so they worked with what they had. That's not good enough anymore. Some can argue that it's a style of its own that has its own merits, and you know, maybe there are some good examples of it. I haven't personally had one, but you know, it's just one of those things where tastes change, availability of ingredients change. Hell, grain and hops change year to year by crops. You're always going to have something different and something new coming up. But
Well, what do you? Oh, wait. I'm going to let Mike answer that first part of that question. Then, do you think that it's on the way out, or is that kind of crazy talk?
I mean, I think it's on the way out in the terms of, the market share. I think it's just going to continue to go down. It's going to be slow because its market share is huge, but I think it's just going to continue to go down as, like we were saying before, as the amount of choice that people have increases, as the number of bars that have something else besides Bud and Bud Light and Miller Lite on tap, as the number of those bars increases, people are going to try the other beers, and chances are they're going to like them. And so I think you're just going to, the market share is going to continue to go down. It won't go away. It's going to continue, and especially, if you've got, Bud Light 30 racks are still, ridiculously cheap in college towns, like, those are still going to be very prevalent, as is, the dollar drafts at bars when they have promotions and things like that. Like, it's always going to be Bud Light and the like. So definitely not going away. Market share is probably just going to continue to go down at a slow clip.
Okay, well, what does that say then, especially with the amount of consolidation that's even going on in the industry beyond AB InBev? Should we be freaking out as much? I was double thinking this because when this topic came up a few weeks ago about because of the Super Bowl ad, I kind of came down on the side of, you know what, I'm not buying Goose Island stuff anymore. And I've been looking at what's going on in the industry as far as a broader trend in consolidation, and it got me to stop and think. And it's like, it's there. It's not going away. Is that a reason to hate on it? Because me not giving them their money is not going to stop this. It's just not going to. There are not enough people not giving their money to stop this. AB InBev is going to get someone to buy that product no matter what. Am I just being a kind of idealistic fool? Which answer is your mileage may vary, I'm sure. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, are we kind of at that point where it's sort of like, why fight it, or is it something worth fighting just on principle alone, as far as buying from the big guys, even if they've got
what's the principle? I mean, is it just that you don't want to buy beer from a brewery that's so big, or from a company that is so big?
No, I think it's more you don't want to put money in their pocket so that they can perpetuate the consolidation wave, I guess.
So what we're really discussing is when you said earlier, should we be hating on Anheuser-Busch for continuing to make the American Light Lager? Absolutely not. You don't hate Anheuser-Busch for their product. You hate them for their business practices. It's the fact that they use their political pull to influence market decisions in a corrupt capitalist environment. That's really what we're discussing when it comes to hating on AB InBev or Miller Coors or any of these larger groups. They're not even companies, they're conglomerates of multiple companies. And really, it comes down to, why do we hate them? It's sure the whole political pull and what I said before, but it's also using that to limit choice. And as I said before, with you only have Comcast in this town, you don't want to go back to that. They're trying all they can to go back to that. And we like our freedom, we like our choices.
Right. Well, I mean, well, and Mike, I sense that you might be kind of trending this way too. I mean, do you have to cut them off then? I mean, the, I have to say, Goose Island makes some fine products, and
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
I hate the fact that I'm putting money in AB InBev's pocket when I did, buy their beer, but at the same time, if I withhold my money, I'm punishing a lot of people who stuck with Goose Island, who were craft beer guys before they were purchased, and at least at heart are still craft brewers. So not
And they're
only that,
still
but I,
putting out a good product, I would say.
yeah. So I mean, I guess I get back to that. Is that idealism functional, or is it something that kind of we should be look at a couple of times over and say, well, what's really going on here in our own heads? Um, you see, now I'm back on the fence because I was, like I said, a month ago, I was ready to say I'm never getting another Goose Island product again. But the more I think about it, I'm like, come on, it's like fighting the tide. The tide's gonna come in and out no matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
I mean,
now you're
I don't know. There's not the taste is not to be overlooked. I mean, if Bud Light tasted like the beer that I'm drinking right now, I would drink a lot more Bud Light. I mean, it's just it doesn't. So Goose Island, I mean, they make a great product. A lot of their beers are very, very good, and I that's what I'm going for. I'm going for the taste and the quality of the beer. And if it just so happens that a gigantic company or conglomerate happens to put out a good beer, then from time to time I'm probably going to buy it. That said, um, there's something to be said for the beers that are brewed down the street that I know that they were bottled less than a week ago, and then less than a week later I'm cracking it open and it tastes fantastic, and that's just something that the large conglomerates are going to be hard for them to do unless they start buying tiny breweries in small towns across the country. They may do it, who knows? But
Aaron,
until they do, like their beer is just not going to be as good or as fresh and as this. So I'm going to keep buying the stuff from down the street.
Yeah.
really, we've gone from a factual to a philosophical debate on when it comes to
Fun.
Ghost Island. I see it as you don't have to answer this totally rhetorical question, but do you buy products from Walmart? It's one of those things that nowadays, sometimes you just have to. It's close. They're all over the place. It's cheap. It's available. Of course, you shop at Walmart. And then there are those who decide not to because of business practice reasons. They put out a reliable, consistent product. How they get that product is a bit iffy. A lot of people don't want to think about that, and just buy it. It's the same deal with Goose Island right now being owned by AB InBev. Do they put out a good product? Absolutely. How do they put out that good product? Let's not think about that. Uh, it's one of the, as I said before, wonders of capitalism. When does it go too far? Or it's always nice to have a company that instead of going for some public offering, it's owned either by its employees or like BrewDog's owned by its consumers. That's always an interesting concept, but it's not really compatible with our current political system. So it just turns into one of those things. In the end, the consumer will always decide. Walmart will still exist as long as people keep buying from Walmart. Anheuser-Busch will still exist as long as people keep buying beer from the companies that Anheuser-Busch owns.
Well, I'm going to lighten up a little bit because I think that I've taken this too much into philosophical territory. I'm sorry. Everybody's getting very.
Not at all. This was a fantastic discussion.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Very
it
interesting.
needed to be said. I'm glad we all got our opinions out there.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to. I'll take it in a slightly more fun direction in terms of just kind of what's going on in your guys' area. Are you guys going to any beer fest pretty soon, or do you have any fests that you guys are going to be pouring at, for example? Skylar, or and you had just talked about like wasn't Mike? You were talking about what was it? Harpoon was either about to have or recently had an event, right?
Yeah, you know what? I Mike asked me that same question last week, and I was like, I think it's soon, and I still haven't looked to see when it is. I still think it's soon. I don't know exactly when it is.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember this conversation because you were like, yeah, it was basically you paid money to get into a place to pay more money to buy a beer that you would
Yeah.
buy without paying for the ticket anyway.
I
Okay.
hate to hate on Harpoon as I'm wearing a Harpoon shirt at the moment. I like Harpoon, but their events, whatever you want to call them, I went to a few of them. It's exactly as you say. Like you pay admission to get in, and then they've got like two or three beers on tap. They're not special releases. They're just a couple beers you can get at any of the bars nearby, and you're paying full price for those beers as you would at any bars nearby. So I was just like, why am I going to stand under this tent where it's 90 degrees and the humidity is 98%, to spend more than I would normally for Harpoon beer. So I don't know. I haven't been to one in a couple of years. I'm probably not going to go again for a while. Good beer though. Good beer though.
Well, is anything else coming up in the Boston area then that you know of, or?
No, I know that there's the Boston Craft Beer Festival is geez, that's got to be soon. I forget the date, but I know it's coming up, and it's always a really good event. A lot of the uh, well known, really good New England breweries are there. The Alchemist is there with Hetty Topper. In the past, I think they've had Lawson's also from Vermont come down, Maine Beer Company. And so I'm pretty sure that's coming up soon, but I don't know the exact day.
Okay. And what about you, Skylar?
As far as beer events,
Yeah. Like, where are you guys pouring, or are you going to any outside of the? I would doubt that. It's like free time. What's that?
you know what's really funny? Something I didn't expect, coming into going pro, is I was always the guy that would go to every single beer event, right? But
Right.
now work, aka making beer, is keeping me away from going to these beer events. Uh, it sucks, There was one this past weekend. I was like, oh, I really want to go to that, and it's like, I got to brew. It's although I am excited, we've gotten to the point where we just hired our first two part-time employees,
Nice.
meaning
Yes.
those guys are going to be out making sales and deliveries, which means I don't have to. So I can concentrate on brewing and having a day off like I just did today. Okay, yeah, I still went into work for an hour or two just to dry hop a beer. But yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to start doing more events. We've got a few events under our belt, but there's some really good ones coming up in the area later this year, after summer, because anyone who lives in Texas knows don't go to an event during the summer. No one even holds them during. You're gonna die. You're probably pass out, heat stroke. Uh, so yeah, I can't wait till the weather gets cooler and we can go out and do events.
Okay. Yeah, I forget that. Yeah, it's a totally different climate down there. Yeah, because we're actually just starting up our season, really. Literally in Chicago. Next year is the beginning of Craft Beer Week, and Mike and I are going to be going to Beer Under Glass at the Garfield Park Conservatory. I don't know if he talked about it last week, but I'm sure it's come up before on the show. So that whole week should be very interesting. Like, our homebrew club was going to take a trip into the city, I think, next weekend. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not now. Goose Island is just opening up their tap room, actually. They have a new tap room opening up in town. Sorry, Skylar. And that's actually just down the same train line from where the beer festival Mike and I are going to is happening. So, Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on around here, and that's just the kicking off of the rest of summer. So, anybody in Chicago, make sure to check your calendar because there's probably something happening, if not near you this year or this month, and probably in the next couple of months. Let's see here. I don't have a wheel, and
Uh-oh.
so I'm going to have to do this a little bit differently this week. What what haven't you guys had in a while that you would like to bring to the show next week? Let's do it that way.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Uh-oh. Okay, Skylar
You know
is
what?
Yes.
I haven't had a lager in a while.
Okay, so we have a lager. Now, just generically lager, or do we want to go with a specific style or sub-style? Or do we want to leave that up to us? I don't know, Mike?
Lager's a good choice. I mean, it's getting to be summer. Pilsner is always a good beer to have in the summer.
Yeah. Now we just did. No, wait. No, maybe we didn't just do Maibach. But Maibachs are
Mm-hmm.
around.
Yeah.
But I just had some for the club, so if we can get something else other than that, that'd be good too. Pilsner's that works.
Yeah, I
Um,
like the idea of a good pilsner right now.
so okay, well, why don't I do this? I will. I'm such a goof. All right, so let's see here. We'll do Pilsner, Maibach. Now I'm actually gonna. I put down a mystery one for the last one. And it's
Oh,
just
sort of a grab bag potluck
yeah,
category.
yeah, kind of. Well, it's a lager, but it's going to be
Oh,
one where I'm not even sure people are going to be able to get one. Okay, so do we want us behind door number? I totally forget which one's which now. Door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3?
3.
Okay, behind door number 3 we have M for Maybach. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, you can't even see that. There you go.
There it is.
Lost in the glare. So, all right. So I guess, and I think that that's on the wheel too, so that can get legitimately taken off.
Hmm.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you both very much for jumping on and making my life easier because honestly, doing this solo would just not work.
Good show.
And
No, you did a nice job. And
no,
Skylar, good to see you. It's been a while since I think we've been on at the same time.
Yeah, it's nice being on the same time as you.
that's awesome. All right, well, cheers to everybody. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like us on Facebook. Check out YouTube if you're not doing so right now. And there's probably Twitter stuff and all that. So, cheers, everybody. Drink some beer.
Cheers.
Yeah.